Welcome, everybody. My name is Brian Hauser. I'm the president of the Glen Manor Condo Association. On behalf of Glen Manor Condominiums, owners and residents, I welcome all of you here today to include Montgomery County Executive Marc Elrich, Montgomery County Council President Tom Hucker, and various other officials from the county and I believe some private agencies. Several years ago, Glen Manor community decided it needed to replace its aging HVAC equipment consisting of 70-year-old pipes, 12 to 25-year-old equipment, and as in our research, we found it was expensive to replace. As one HVAC maintenance technician told me, I don't have any more tricks or big band-aids in my truck to fix your system. So it was time to replace it. Due to the cost involved, our first inclination as a community was, should we just sell the property? Because we didn't have the money available to do this type of project. The owners residents expressed that they like where they live because of its convenience to downtown Wheaton, downtown Silver Spring. So let's look for some other solutions. So through a training course put on by the Office of Common Ownership Communities, which is part of the county housing department, I learned about the Montgomery County Green Bank and what it offered in the way of financing help for this type of project. So fast forward to today, the Green Bank helped us obtain affordable lending through Sandy Spring Bank and seek equipment rebates through PEPCO. This partnership made it possible to keep the community and its affordable housing intact. The energy efficiencies we gain through this project will cut just over $400 a month, or almost $5,000 annually from our energy bill the first year this equipment is put into use. The energy efficiency also will help us offset future energy increases. Once again, thanks to all those who made it possible for us to complete this critical project for the Glen Manor community. Now I'd like to introduce Adam Ortiz from the Department of Environment, who will take over. Thank you.
Happy Earth Day, everybody. It is a beautiful Earth Day. It is the 51st Earth Day. It is an Earth Day where some of us are wearing puffy jackets, which is not how we planned it, but we're still pleased to be here and pleased to see all of you. My name is Adam Ortiz. I'm the director of the county's Department of Environmental Protection, and it is such an honor to be here with the folks behind me and the folks in front of me to celebrate all the great work that we're doing together. And as a government, we try to do everything we can. We try to think of good laws, good policies, good programs, but we cannot do it alone. The environment is an all-hands-on-deck enterprise, so we need everybody's help, from small everyday actions like using reusable bags and recycling to building retrofits like this. And my hat is off, literally and figuratively, to Brian and the Condo Association here for showing their leadership. I have to commend all the folks who made the programming possible. Tom Deo, who heads our Green Bank, Key, our staff, who we'll announce a little bit later, to create the policies, working with our utilities to establish the mechanisms by which this project was done. And although this is just one project, it is one big example to all the other multifamily communities and business owners throughout the region that so much can be done. So welcome you on this Earth Day. Our first speaker will be somebody who has made the environment a top priority. Many county executives and mayors talk a good game about the environment, but often in the day-to-day of governing, it is overwhelmed by other imperatives like public safety or economic development in schools, and all those things are so important. But often the environment becomes a talking point only at the right times. But not with Marc. Marc is a leader on the environment every single day. It is a priority in the budget, it is a priority for staffing, and it is a priority for taking on the tough issues with legislation. So please join me in welcoming our county executive.
Thank you. I think I can do this. First, I want to thank everybody for coming here. I really want to thank the folks at the Glen Manor community and the Green Bank for this project. This is really important. It shows what's possible. people say that, the most environmentally friendly building is the building that already exists. And building something new consumes an enormous amount of resources. Taking a building that already exists, reusing it, and making it sustainable for the long term prolongs the life of this building, saves energies that would have been spent on taking the building down and rebuilding it. So it was the right decision, and it was a good decision. And it's good to have partners with the Green Bank that cares about things like this, and it's good to have residents who care about things like this, because this doesn't happen if you don't care. So it's really important what you're seeing here today. This is going to play into some of the things we're going to talk about later. Earth Day is yet another reminder of the climate emergency, and I know that the COVID emergency has kind of pushed things out of the headlines, but the news has been so bad on the climate this year. Incredibly bad on the climate. The ice sheets melting faster than people thought. The estimates of how much water rise there's going to be much higher than people thought. The temperature fluctuations, the bizarre weather, we've had a tad of that here. Floods that have made it clear to Montgomery County that the amazing and vast stormwater infrastructure that we built since this county developed is inadequate in many places to handle the amount of flooding that is occurring today. That is not a small thing. When you talk to residents whose houses are flooding and streets are flooding, they are feeling these problems every time there's a major storm. So we have a lot of work to do, and if it weren't for COVID-19, this would have been the story of the day, the week, the month, and the year. And it's likely to be the story of this country going forward. So how are we going to tackle it? We're going to do this with big steps and small steps. There is no magic wand. There's some people think, well, you can just turn climate change off. They're just a set group of things you can just do, you implement them, and you're done. I only wish it were that easy. If it were that easy, everybody would have done it by now. It is not that easy. It takes a lot of resources. It takes inventions and technology that is not fully mature today. We're looking at, what we can do, and we're also looking at the horizon, and we watch things being developed that I believe are going to enable us to accelerate our work on climate change, but they're not yet ready for the market. Adam was right. I've probably been unrelenting with my staff and asking them to change things. I want to know why everything can't be done. However, I do accept explanations for it. But I want to know why, because if we know why, then we can figure out what's the path forward so we can do these things. I'm going to start by talking about what we've done already in Montgomery County, because there are people that think, well, without a climate plan, what are you doing? And the fact is, I'm not the first county executive, but I probably was on the first council that started to take climate change seriously. And so things were put in place before I became county executive, and we continue to build on that. We were the first county in the nation to adopt a building energy benchmarking law. It's enabled us to save about 2% in energy a year. It's not as aggressive because it doesn't require changes, but it made people conscious of their energy usage, and it encouraged people to do things to reduce their energy usage. It's a small thing, but it's an important thing. We've installed solar power on county facilities. We have 7.6 megawatts now, which is the equivalent of 7.4 million pounds of coal burned. The Closed Oaks landfill is going to host another 6 megawatts, and that's underway. And community solar, it will be community solar available to low and moderate income residents. It's going to help lower their utility bills. Over the coming year, a total of 16.2 megawatts will be online. That's enough to charge, I love this one, roughly half the smartphones in the world one time. It's either a lot of energy or a lot of smartphones. Probably a combination of both. And what we haven't announced yet is we're working with Pepco, which is talking to us about community solar on Pepco properties. And so we've actually had a couple of conversations now looking at property Pepco owns, and they've been very upfront about saying that if we do these projects as community solar to support low-income communities, they will make the land available for little or nothing. That is not insignificant. So we're looking to partner with Pepco on this and other things. This will help us install residential solar as well. We've partnered with Solar United Neighbors to create a solar co-op to bring down the cost for residents to install solar on their roofs and EV charging stations. We're moving our entire fleet to electric and zero-emission vehicles. We have 4 electric buses, we have 10 more on the way, and we're also on a pilot testing an EV police vehicle, the Ford Mach-E. Ford doesn't yet have a police version of their Mach-E, but we're kind of the test bed for developing that police version. And if we can get it right, then our police fleet will transform to an electric fleet over a period of years. Same with our bus fleet. The big question with our buses as we move to rapid transit, we're going to have a different mix of buses. And if I replaced all my ride-on buses today, they're probably not the right vehicles for where we're going to go in the future. And we're actually looking at hydrogen for some of the bigger vehicles that'll have longer travel. This is where you can't do everything in one moment until you figure out what the next moment's going to look like. When we know what bus rapid transit looks like, we'll know what the right vehicles are. But when we buy those vehicles, they will be clean vehicles. We're working on public transportation. We've moved forward on the Flash on 29. We've got 2 more projects in the immediate works, which is Veers Mill Road and 355 from Bethesda to Clarksburg. And we're also working on the Quarter Cities Transit Way, reviving that project that the governor had delayed, but we continue to work with the state to bring it back in what I think is going to be a more viable form. I helped partner with MCPS on the 300 electric school buses that they purchased. It started in a conversation with David Frazier Hidalgo, a delegate from Montgomery County in Annapolis, and we were talking about his school bus legislation. He introduced me to a company. I talked to them. They were like pitching this idea that they would replace school bus fleets for the cost of your diesel fleet over the next 10 years, which intrigued me. We met again. I brought them into a meeting with my county staff and with staff from the school system and convinced the school system to look at the tax credits in the program that was being offered, where the leaser takes advantage of tax credits to bring down the price of vehicles that the county otherwise would have had to buy. And just so everybody understands this, if I go out and buy a bus, I pay the price of the bus. Tax credits are useless to me. I can't take advantage of depreciation. I can't take advantage of solar tax credits or battery tax credits or charging station tax credits, all useless to the government. But somebody who leases this stuff to me and owns it and leases it to me can take all of that, and that becomes part of their payment, which helps bring down the cost of what the county government has to pay for these assets. So we're looking to explore this and for our own fleet, and I'm really optimistic that it's going to help us tackle one of the problems we had is where do we find the capital to do some of these things. We're adding more EV charging stations. We have a pilot program now that'll let you, if you own a house, put a charging station out on the street in front of your house, so you can actually get there if you don't have a driveway. And Pepco is working on a program to install over 100 charging stations on the streets of Montgomery County. And we're looking at other programs to partner where we might be able to add charging stations to existing poles and existing streetlight installations. So we are going to make it so that you don't have range anxiety. I have electric vehicles. I once had an electric vehicle with an 83-mile range, the early Leaf. Talk about range anxiety. Anybody who worked in my office knows that I could go out and do a tour of the county and have to stop, preferably at a place that had wings and beer, and and spend the half hour getting my vehicle recharged so I could finally get back to the county. But it's a real thing, and having charging stations really makes a big difference. And so we're looking at putting the infrastructure in place so people can make that decision to move to electric vehicles. We're making it easier to walk, bike, and scooter, and we're looking at micro mobility pilot program. We're training our staff across all departments to work on climate solutions, and we're engaging in the community in a climate change art contest, and winners are going to be announced today. And in June, we're launching a Climate Stories project to hear personal stories about climate action. And our Caribbean American Advisory Group is very, very engaged in this project. There are two more big pieces of legislation that we've sent over to the council. And one of them has to do with this building here. It's a building energy performance standard. We will be one of a handful of jurisdictions in the country, and the only county, the first county in the country, to implement building energy performance standard. And what it does, it takes the notion of a benchmark and puts it on steroids. It actually sets marks that buildings will have to meet, and it'll be required. And let's be blunt about this. If we don't change the built environment, there is no getting to zero. It is flat out impossible to use inefficient buildings, carbon-fueled buildings, and get to zero. There's only one way, and that's that the existing infrastructure, whether it's buildings or cars, has to transform itself, as well as the new infrastructure. So the building energy performance standards will move us in that direction. It'll ensure that owners operate and maintain their buildings. We're going to work with them. We're going to have technical expertise in our offices. And I'm optimistic, frankly, that President Biden and the legislation and the actions he's announced, the 30% greenhouse gas reduction by 2030, he knows what we know. You can't get there without investments in the existing infrastructure, and hopefully federal investments will come down to the county and help make what we do possible. We need partners. We need to be honest about that. I was reading one of the highly touted climate plans. I won't say what jurisdiction it was, but when it talked about making low-income housing clean, and they said, this is our goal, and how are we going to pay for it? Search for external funds. Yeah, we're all searching for external funds. We need more money. We need the federal government to step up. And I'd say it's kind of like COVID. The federal government stepped in because we were in an emergency and said, we have to save this country. We have to protect this country. We're going to spend the money. We need that same energy now turned on climate change. We need the federal government to say, we have to do this if we're going to make a difference. We're going to step up and get this done. And we have to deal with equity. Equity has to be a part of everything we do in climate change, because I could take a low-income apartment building and spend a fortune on energy systems and changing its windows and insulating its roof, and I could displace every tenant in that building because the new costs will make that building unaffordable. We cannot do that. We cannot repeat our sad pattern in this country of displacing people every time we fix something up. We fix up a neighborhood, we bring new buildings into an area, and the people who live there get displaced to make room for somebody new. We need to make sure that all communities are part of our efforts in climate change, not just the ones that can afford it. For future buildings, which is the second part of this, we're adopting the 2018 International Green Construction Code. Again, we'll be one of the very few jurisdictions that move to adopt it. Eventually, we'll just be one of the crowd. But right now, we're going to be in front. We've sent this to the council. It applies to all new buildings, all new commercial buildings, and additions over 5,000 square feet. It sets a more stringent standard than our current code, which is the 2012 Green Code, and we are working and starting work shortly on the 2021 revision of the Green Building Code. It's a clear path to net zero energy for buildings, commercial buildings, by 2030, and it complements the 2018 Energy Code. We're also looking at one of my favorite things, community choice energy. We did not know when we did the climate plan that this legislation would ever pass. It passed the legislature this year. This is going to let the county take the buying power of every resident and business in this county to negotiate the best deal we can possibly get for clean energy. Montgomery County government is already on clean energy. Now it's our turn to make that available to the rest of the folks in the county. I'm very optimistic about that. It's going to take one large sector that we would have a hard time dealing with otherwise. It's going to allow us to electrify it cleanly. It is going to take a while. And one of the things I remind people, there is nobody around here who's got the same timeline, and we live in the state of Maryland. They do have a timeline where they need to go, but their timeline is 10 years stretched beyond our timeline. It's hard to electrify a grid in the state of Maryland if the state of Maryland isn't going to do it now. Our goals are different. Our timeline is different. So we're going to be doing things a little bit differently. By law, we can't start the community choice energy until April 2023. The Public Service Commission is designing guidelines. We will be working with them, and we're also going to be scouting the universe so we don't start searching for the right energy company in 2023. We're going to start working on that now. And we're also coming up with planning a new 2021 International Energy Conservation Code, which is a path to net zero for residential homes. It includes both solar, it includes energy savings in terms of insulation and window changes, and it also includes things like geothermal. So we're looking at a complete package of how to get buildings down to zero rather than relying strictly on solar energy. And I will probably be ordering solar panels for my house this week. We're planning to strengthen our other building codes so that the built environment uses less energy. We've got a transportation demand management program. I have pushed this for years on the council, that if you want to get people out of cars, you've got to set limits on the number of cars that can drive into our central business districts. You need to manage traffic. Other people do this. We need to do this. We need to do it better and more than we're doing it now. But you've got to put rapid transit in place. If I were to try to make this switch today and eliminate parking spaces, people would have no way of getting there. That's why we've got to move forward on things like bus rapid transit. So if I say you can't park, I can also say, but I've got a bus ride that's going to get you there quickly. If I don't do both, then this isn't going to work. So we're committed to doing both these things. I am thrilled to have the Montgomery County Green Bank as a partner, and they are going to be the administrator for the Montgomery County Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy, which is called CPACE. This is a funding program to help businesses at lower cost make their businesses energy efficient. And I have not given up on residential PACE. Hopefully we'll be able to get back to that. I've talked to somebody in the Federal Energy Department who thinks there's a way forward. And there is some amazing money available at the federal government level if we can design the programs that'll use it. So last year, the legislature authorized local jurisdictions to establish resilience authorities to help finance projects. We're looking to expand the Green Bank's role so they become our resilience authority. And we're going to be putting legislation to the council to that effect. So throughout this pandemic, we've continued to make progress on climate. Not enough time to outline everything we've done, though I tried. But what we're doing, we're going to continue. And I want people to know that the climate plan is a living document. We did not write this and then just decide this is it. Because what we know today is not what we knew last year is different than what we know today. Things that we didn't think about last year are suddenly feasible today. So this is going to be a living document. It's going to continue to change. It's going to be enhanced with timelines and with clear statements of what we expect to get out of efficiency efforts that we make. We want people to know that we're serious about this. We're going to put money into public education. This doesn't happen if people don't go along with it. You know, this has been a big discussion. The residents of the county, the state, and the country have to understand the essential nature of this work and that they need to be our partners. I can't make you buy an electric car. I can't demand that the prices come down on electric cars. Technology has to play its part, but residents have to say, I want to make that change. They have to say, you know, if I can get the same travel and the same mileage and I can, you know, keep this place a cleaner place, that I need to be willing to make that switch to green energy. And that's part of our work, is going to do the education. We've got lots of people who want to do this work with us. There was an amazing group of citizens who created the climate plan and made the original suggestions. We're ready to move forward, and I just want to thank everybody who's been a part of this. The Glen Manor Condominium, all our nonprofit partners, and my staff, which has been able to deal with my constant pushing them to let's get to a better place. We're going to get there, and this is the beginning. Thank you.
Thank you, County Executive Marc. We appreciate your vision, your aggressive agenda, and ensuring that at the Department of Environmental Protection there is never a dull day with nothing to do. Our next speaker is a huge partner. We're lucky to have a county executive that takes all this work seriously and takes on the challenge without fear. And we have a county council that also feels the same way, has made so much progress on so many issues. In addition to having a green tie and a face mask that is well designed with the Montgomery County logo, Tom Hucker has been a tremendous partner to the department, and we invite him today to speak not just as the chair of the committee that the environmental department reports to, but as president of the council. So please welcome Council President Tom Hucker.
Thank you so. Thank you so much, Adam. Thanks so much to the county executive as well. Thank you for your kind words. Happy Earth Day, everybody. And thanks to the Glen Manor community and the Green Bank for their role in giving us a great, meaningful site to do this event. I always get a little nostalgic on Earth Day. I moved to this area to work on environmental campaigns, and after a couple of years of that, I remember being bused up to the 1990 Earth Day rally in New York, organized by Jeremy Rifkin, with hundreds of thousands of people turning out that day. And then in '95, my job for a while was pre-internet, managing a whole effort to pass out hundreds of thousands of flyers at metro stations to create a crowd of 250,000 people on the mall for Earth Day '95. And to tell you how long ago that was, the headliners were Boyz II Men, Goo Goo Dolls, and Natalie Merchant. So it's a reminder to me of not only how lucky I am to continue to be able to do this work and actually get paid for it, but how frustratingly slow the progress has been. So it's great to be doing it, though, in a county that takes it so seriously, and to be working so closely with a county executive and his team that is a real partner, as Adam mentioned, in making progress. We've, of course, all been focused on the other existential threat before us, COVID, this year. And that's occupied most of the time, as it should have, of most of our elected officials in the executive branch and the county council. But luckily, we have a professional staff, Climate Czarina, Adriana Hochberg, DEP Director Ortiz, DGS Director Dice, and their teams, and the DOT Director Conklin, who have been moving forward on our planning and meeting with stakeholders and honing our policy solutions while we've focused on the more immediate existential threat, COVID. But I think this year, as dramatic and frustrating and difficult as it's been, it has shown how quickly the government can pivot and make progress on things that have vexed us for years. We have heard from so many residents that they're working from home and they want safe streets to walk in. And so the DOT set up a shared streets program and an open streets program, and we now have streets all over the county that are either restricted to cars or closed to cars so that neighbors can walk and bike for recreation and to see their neighbors. What a great concept, safely in their neighborhoods. We also have ramped up our telecommuting. Workers have always wanted that. Employers haven't always wanted that. Now we've shown that the economy can move forward in a telecommuting environment, and the county government has really led the way, starting with 300 workers telecommuting pre-COVID and going to 3,000 workers telecommuting now. A big difference, and we're not going back to the old days of pre-COVID. The pre-COVID world was really based on a lot of bad decisions that don't hold up in the light of history. And we need the help of the public and all of the advocates that are here, helping us build a better world post-COVID that's more sustainable and more equitable and stronger and shows more and has more justice. I'm very excited to get through the budget process that the council's in right now, where we're going to be making investments in addressing our climate emergency and our other environmental needs with staffing decisions and policy decisions. And then we're going to take up these great bills that the executive branch has sent over. I'm very excited about the Building Energy Performance Standard bill and the International Green Construction Code that Marc described. Those are really characteristic of the environmental leadership that Montgomery County has shown for a long time and is going to continue to show as we address our climate emergency. I'm really excited about electrification of our bus fleets. You all know about the multi-year lease that was signed by MCPS to get hundreds of electric buses delivering our children to our schools, and ones that will do so more safely with a lot less air pollution as well. We are going to be electrifying our fleet, as Marc described, the ride-on fleet as well, and going to be leaders in the region and the state in that front as well. And the council fully supports those decisions and that progress. But we can't tackle a global problem by ourselves, which is why I'm also very excited, as Marc mentioned, about the Community Choice Energy Bill that passed through the General Assembly. Marc and I both testified for it. I was happy to testify in front of my old committee in the House. And you know, like Marc, there's my electric car over there, and I have solar panels on my house. I'm lucky enough to have a house that makes sense for solar panels, but we're never going to get to our goals if we count on 1 million residents to make good individual decisions for the climate. We have to help make decisions at a large scale, and we have to offer them renewable energy that's affordable and offer it to hundreds of thousands of residents all at the same time, and that's what CCE will do. That's going to be a game changer at changing our sources of energy, and it's really a fantastic step forward. We also have to partner with our federal delegation, not just the state delegation, to move forward our transportation projects, for example. And that's why I'm so glad to announce that the county staff is working with our federal delegation and just put in the forms, working especially with Congressman Anthony Brown, who's on the Transportation Environment Committee, Congressman Trone, who's on the Appropriations Committee, to seek federal funding for 7 transportation projects that meet the new screens the Biden administration has set for transportation projects, which is that they're good for the climate and they promote racial equity. We have a lot of old projects that don't, and foremost among them is the monster that we need to put the brakes on, which is the governor's plan to supersize 495 and 270. That didn't make sense in a pre-COVID world. That was like out of the 1970s. But it really makes no sense in a post-COVID world where we're going to see a dramatic increase in telecommuting and a lot less congestion. You don't have to believe me. You can believe the Northern Virginia Transportation Alliance, which predicts about 20% less cars on the road, fewer cars on the road for the next 5 years. So it's no time to be building the biggest highway widening project in the country in this environment. It would set back our climate progress permanently, not only by putting thousands of more cars on the road, but by engendering a whole generation of bad land use decisions. We only control Montgomery County, but there's already speculation going on to build new developments, sprawl developments in Frederick County, Howard County, Anne Arundel County, all because of the proposal that's before the Board of Public Works. So we certainly need all of our residents who care about the climate to continue to thank Treasurer Kopp, to urge Comptroller Francho to do the right thing and put the brakes on that project, and for the governor to join us and propose a real 21st century post-COVID transportation congestion relief project that our bipartisan planning board and our professional transportation planners believe will actually reduce congestion, because the one he's proposed, they do not believe will reduce congestion at all. My kids are 7 and 9, and they are really into Kong versus Godzilla right now. And I've pushed them, when you're watching on Hulu, it pulls up the old flicks as well. And in all those 1970s monster movies, you can't kill the monster by any one hero. It takes a team effort. We have a great team with our federal delegation, the state delegation, a county executive and his staff who's very committed, and I can tell you all my colleagues on the council are very committed to slaying the climate monster in the coming years if we keep this team together and if we put the brakes on the highway widening project. Thank you all so much for your attention to this.
Thank you, Tom, so much for your friendship and collegiality and leadership, and also thank you in advance for approving our budget at our hearing tomorrow. Our next speaker is a dear friend and important colleague. As several of us have mentioned already, the environment really requires all hands on deck. There's decision makers, at the federal level, at the state and county level, but there's also decision makers in kitchens and in homes and in, working in the yards. And we can't do it without our network of engaged activists and concerned citizens. We've already done a lot of great work together with One Montgomery Green. Recently, we've launched a monthly town hall session where environmental evenings, Enviro evenings, which are open to the public, where people can hear about some of the stuff that we're working on, but also learn and share ideas and give us an opportunity as activists and government leaders on how to be more sustainable. So please join me in welcoming my friend, our colleague, our champion, Wendy Howard.
I paid him for those words. And in fact, I too am going to wish everybody a happy Earth Day. My board chair recently said that this should be a day I take off because we spend 365 days working on this effort. This should be our day to take off. But after this, I have plenty more things to do, so I guess that's not going to happen. So as Adam said, I'm Wendy Howard. I'm the executive director of One Montgomery Green. We're a nonprofit here in Montgomery County, basically Wheaton, Silver Spring area, dedicated to engaging the community in education and outreach that promotes sustainable communities with a visibly green and healthy environmental footprint. Over the past 10 years, with the support of DEP, some of the folks up here and over here, we have had the pleasure of being a model of sustainability, starting with installing one of the first rainscapes in the county, in Wheaton, actually right near where your new building, Park and Planning, is. We've led numerous community efforts and events, such as town halls with Tom, on climate change, stream cleanups, native plantings, invasive plant removals with our local watershed groups. In fact, last night we just hosted a Meet the Watershed, which highlighted efforts being made around Earth Month by our local parks, DEP, and our watershed groups. As Adam mentioned, we're also planning a series of virtual town halls open to county residents to discuss relevant environmental topics that are important to our local area. It's called Eco Evenings with DEP and OMG. All this is an effort to empower and educate the public to better adapt and mitigate the impact of climate change. Most keenly felt this year in the wake of the pandemic was the inequities present in this system. Further collaboration like the County Green Fest, which is going on right now, in partnership with our other greens like Poolsville and Bethesda, DEP and DP, were aimed at engaging communities often left out of the conversation. I personally see this as a basic starter step to help create leadership in those often overlooked communities that will direct and create the seeds of change. This year's theme for Earth Day is Restore Our Earth. This is a task we cannot do alone. It is only through collaboration with partnerships like what we're doing here that this is made possible. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Wendy. And for folks who want to tune in, our next town hall is next Wednesday, and we're going to cover a variety of issues, 6 o'clock. So if you don't already, please follow One Montgomery Green. Please follow our department and tune in. We welcome you anytime. Really excited also to have our next speaker. In the same vein of empowering our neighbors and colleagues, Bethesda Green has been a tremendous leader in so many ways. Bethesda Green has empowered residents and the community of Bethesda, but also importantly, has engaged the business community at a level that is the envy throughout the region. We cannot succeed without our business partners as well as our nonprofit partners. Also, Adam Roberts has been leading the way in providing a forum for young, and not always young, environmental entrepreneurs who have all sorts of great ideas that are looking for markets, looking for support to be able to solve some of the many problems that we have from the private sector. So please join me in welcoming Adam Roberts.
Thank you, Adam. Good morning, everybody. It's nice to see you, especially folks in the media. I say it's nice to see you because when Adam first invited me to do this, I naturally assumed I'd be sitting at my desk on a computer. So it's really nice to be with everybody today. My hair was quite a bit shorter the last time we were all together, but I was able to get back into my suit, so I feel good about that. Today is an interesting day. I've been thinking a lot about Earth Day, and Adam was kind enough to remind us that this is the 51st Earth Day, and I realized as he said that means I've been alive for all of them, which is a slightly painful recognition, just barely, but alive nonetheless. But Tom also reminded me of something I've been thinking of because I too moved to the DC area in the early 1990s, and I've been thinking in preparation for today about whether this is a day of celebration or a day of mourning and fear. And I remembered, as Tom did, that back in those early days in the early 90s, the celebrations we had on the National Mall involved bands and celebrations and a recognition of the importance of the environment while we were celebrating the environment. But now we all know that we're in the middle of a climate emergency. And it's especially nice to see those of you here from the media who are going to broadcast all of these important messages out to the community. Because this morning, like every morning, I listened to a national news program on cable TV, and I took notes of some of the things that they were talking about on Earth Day. It's Derek Chauvin in solitary confinement, 23 hours a day, police reform legislation nationwide, 200 million vaccinations for COVID in people's arms, vaccination hesitancy being an important problem, but increased COVID cases rising around the world in places like India, the New York Yankees in last place. Alexei Navalny on death's door in Russia, Putin having protests and arresting thousands of protesters, Russian aggression in the Donbass as they moved into Ukraine, infrastructure reform legislation, and DC statehood. In the course of a 3-hour national news program, it wasn't until well into the second half of the show that they mentioned Earth Day, and only then in relation to using energy as a leverage point against Vladimir Putin. So as I say, I think it's really important that we are all here today and that you are all here today to remind people how important these issues are for the future of the planet and the future of this community. And when I think about whether this is a day of celebration or a day of mourning, I conclude importantly that it's instead a day of action and a day of collaboration, that's what we must all be focused on so that we can hold each other's feet to the fire to ensure that the decisions that we all make that are within our core competencies are good for the planet and good for our community. And we don't have to worry so much about what's happening globally. We can focus on what's happening here in our community. So the question I ask everyone today is, what action will each of us take to make sure that this Earth Day is a successful Earth Day for the future of our community and our planet? What will the county executive's office do to ensure that we put out a climate plan, not just a climate plan, but remember, it's a climate action plan that deals with carbon sequestration, energy efficient buildings, transportation, green space? What will the county council do? What action will they take to ensure legislation is enacted to implement all of these actionable items? What will the Department of Environmental Protection do to implement all of the legislation that the county council has passed? And then what will we do in the community as members of nonprofit organizations or county residents to ensure that we're living by the important credos of environmental sustainability ourselves? As Adam mentioned at Bethesda Green, much like our friends at One Montgomery Green and others, we're working closely with our community partners to educate the next generation of environmental leaders to ensure that they are taking up the charge to ensure the long-term sustainability of our planet. We're working with eco-entrepreneurs to make sure that they're building new businesses that are surrounded on using our products responsibly, sustainably, reducing plastic, ensuring that we can reuse products, not just recycle them, making sure that our food and drinks are sustainable, making sure that we're advancing composting in the county. We have to realize that all of these things are done in collaboration between nonprofits, the executive's office, the legislature, and the community in general. And if we succeed in our mission of doing those things together, we will have less pollution because we will mitigate stormwater runoff. We will have more rainscapes planted in our condo complexes. We will have more access to street-level recycling, not just in Bethesda, but throughout Montgomery County. We'll advance composting, and we'll make sure that we have a sustainable, livable urban ecosystem for generations to come. So I thank you all for being here and for including us in this presentation today.
Thank you, Adam. Appreciate you and everything you do. Also appreciate that your suit fits. I have to say this is the second suit I had to try on this morning. The first one happened to shrink over the last year of working in my sweatpants every day. But I did remember how to tie a tie, so we'll take that as a win. But it takes all hands on deck, and that's true in our government as well. Very, very pleased to say that Montgomery County does and has practiced what we preach. A lot of folks don't always know what happens inside the government buildings, on our facilities, on our grounds for sustainability, but so much does. And in the government, we do work together in all the different departments. We do have teams that get things done. And the leader of the facilities team is David Dice, who's been fearless, done all sorts of things that other places only dream of. And I would probably say that our government itself, just the government, has done more sustainable things than several states, maybe many states have in our union. So please join me in welcoming DGS Director David Dice.
Thank you, Adam. I appreciate that very much. When Marc was talking about being unrelenting with staff and forcing them to think creatively and get stuff done, it's me. I'm also, everyone's talked about Earth Day today, and perhaps I'm one of the few folks here that have the dubious distinction of actually being there for the first Earth Day. I remember cleaning up stream beds in Southern California at the age of 13. So I've been with Earth Days ever since. And we're really proud, as Adam mentioned, that Montgomery County believes in the practice of leading by example. We're not going to do something and tell other people to do things that we're not prepared to do ourselves. But one of the things that we're really not good at is telling our own story. And so I want to take the opportunity in the few minutes that I have to give you a picture of what we've done, some of which the county executives mentioned, but help you understand more about what a great county you live in and why it's a county to be proud of. For instance, Montgomery County purchases renewable energy credits to offset greenhouse gas emissions, where 100% of our annual electricity consumption is from clean wind energy generation. We also lead a coalition of county agencies and municipalities to purchase electricity supplied by wind generation, and that coalition ranks currently 5th among local governments and 31st among all national purchasers as tracked by the EPA. Some amazing accomplishment. Marc mentioned the International Green Construction Code, which when our Department of Permitting Services was reviewing this initially and talking about and contemplating the recommendation of its inaction, they talked to us and asked us to review it. And I was proud to say that we were already doing those things. So we have a commitment to sustainability and energy efficiency in our buildings. Regarding the green energy supply, the commercial sector, including county government facilities, all government facilities, accounts for more than 1/3 of U.S. electricity consumption and almost 20% of carbon dioxide emissions. So we not only can, but must lead by example because we are a contributor to that. Regarding county facilities, the use of public electric grid power to the county buildings has decreased over the last 5 years by almost 20% because we're pursuing our own sustainable energy development. Energy savings performance contracting is a practice that we have underway. This is an approach where our private partner uses its tax credits and its funding mechanism and to make major building improvements. Not only just lighting efficiency change-outs, but major systems, energy systems like HVAC systems and plumbing systems. Montgomery County partners with ESPC companies in this way. We've completed over 17 projects since FY15. So in the last 6 years, we've done 17 energy performance contracts and saved the county over $2 million in energy costs in that same period. We're also committed to all of our new buildings from now on will be designed for net zero energy usage, and we are currently involved in starting a project that will pilot the conversion of existing facilities to net zero. We need to reduce the energy demands and carbon footprint of our existing infrastructure as well as that which will come. So we're going to begin working on that. Regarding renewable energy production, Marc's already mentioned we have 7.6 megawatts of electricity through photovoltaic arrays already deployed, with another 8.6 coming, for a total of 16.2 megawatts. He gave you the stat on the smartphones, but to equate it to something a little more down to earth for you to imagine, that's enough electricity generated to power over almost 1,800 homes, about 1,750 homes just alone from that. And there's more to come. Our greenhouse gas emissions, the equivalent of 37.4 million miles driven by a single car. As I mentioned, our resilient facilities are improving. We anticipate quickly building more resilient facilities that don't require reliance upon the power grid. We do this through microgrids, as well as just the simple practice of improving energy operations and equipment in buildings. We have part of that the energy resilience strategy, as I mentioned, is microgrids, which is a combination of photovoltaics. It's a combination of combined heat and power, and as well as building envelope improvements in energy efficiencies. I'm proud to say that in 2018, we finished the public safety headquarters in the Montgomery County Correctional Facility as 2 resilient, standalone microgrids. Just about a mile from here, we're beginning this year on building a similar microgrid for our Brookville bus maintenance depot, where the electric buses will be deployed. And that project will be completed in a year's time, actually a little after the end of this year, and we'll have solar arrays and battery storage, so that when the buses aren't there, we can actually push energy back into the system. We're also going to be doing this at our Gaithersburg bus depot in the following year. And as a commitment to sustainability, or to equity, we are actually building our first resilient community center in the Scotland community, and that project gets underway this year as well. This is a traditionally African American community and will become the prototype for resilient facilities that we can place in community centers and recreational centers and neighborhoods all around the county. Marc also has mentioned the green fleet, but let me just throw some statistics at you. We have one of the greenest fleets around. We have over 250 hybrid vehicles, but we are aggressively now pursuing the electrification of the fleet, a complete transition of the bus fleet over the next 15 years to electric, as well as the administrative fleet. These are just some of the things that we're doing. There's much more, and I would encourage you to go on to the county DGS website, where you can access the Green Government Report that summarizes a great many of these things. Lastly, it's not just about buildings and facilities. It's about behavioral change as well. And we've worked with our friends and colleagues in the Department of Environmental Protection, as well as the Department of Technology Services, to work on things as simple as shutting computers off to decrease energy demand. We've installed earth lifts at our fleet maintenance facility that actually generate energy when the vehicle is being lowered, and they operate off of Wi-Fi to improve safety. Working with DEP, the Work Green program that has been mentioned, and other things that help inform people about the energy that they use. We found a long time ago that an informed population is a motivated population, and that includes county workers. So when they're aware of what they can do by turning off lights, not using space heaters, and certainly through telework, they can contribute not only to the county leading by example, but Montgomery County's leadership in the environmental world. Thank you very much.
Well, as you can tell, between Marc and David, they could have had their own press conference and would have lasted twice as long if they to talk about all the things that we're doing. But activists and taxpayers and everyone who lives, works, or plays in Montgomery, be assured that this county government is doing a lot for your environment. Our last speaker is really one of our leaders, my leader, and the leader of many of us here that are working on the interagency team to move a very, very ambitious climate agenda forward. I also want to take this moment to recognize some of the folks from the various agencies that are working together. These are folks that aren't at the microphone necessarily, but do yo person's work, moving so many things forward because it often takes a lot. I want to recognize Stan Edwards and Lindsay Shaw from our department, just do remarkable work every single day and have for a long time. I also want to recognize colleagues from other sister agencies. They aren't the Department of Environmental Protection, but we love and respect them as well. Want to recognize Tina LeBoy, Brian Bomer, and Mara Parker. We appreciate everything that you all do. And if I left somebody out, please accept my apologies and my appreciation. But the czarina of our effort probably needs no introduction. Been working on all sorts of levels with businesses, with associations, with other governments, with all the departments in our county, and there are dozens of departments, all sorts of personalities, council members, state legislators, you name it, moving forward the most ambitious agenda in the country, especially for a county. So please join me in welcoming Czarina of Climate, Adriana Hochberg.
Thank you, Adam. And so I'm playing cleanup today, so no pressure. You've heard a lot this morning about the actions that we already have underway. Now I will share a brief update with you on our climate planning efforts. I want to thank the community for helping to shape our county's climate action plan. The climate action plan aligns all of our actions and provides a roadmap for us to reach our climate goals, which is 80% reductions in greenhouse gas emissions by 2027 and getting to zero emissions by 2035. We have one of the country's most ambitious timelines for getting to zero emissions. The climate action plan helps us to prioritize our actions, to understand climate hazards, and identify ways to prioritize equity. We received over 500 pages of public comments on the draft plan, and we are working hard to review every comment and finalize the plan later this spring. As a companion to the climate action plan, we are going to be releasing an annual climate work plan. The work plan will hone in on the near-term actions that we are taking in the upcoming fiscal year to tackle climate change. It will include the legislative policies that were outlined here today, plus other additional efforts to help reduce greenhouse gas emissions, reduce climate-related risk, and center racial equity and social justice in our work. And we share the community's urgency in tackling climate change and look forward to including the whole community as we implement climate solutions. Thank you.
So in closing, I want to first say how nice it is to see people in 3 dimensions. May this become more of a regular occurrence. It's great to see you. We really appreciate everybody spending time to hear about what we're doing today. Please follow us on social media. Any of us, all of us, there's so much good stuff that's happening and so much great information to share. And also, folks at home, we do want to hear from you. So please use 311 or other ways of communicating with us on your thoughts and your feedback. So on behalf of our county government and the activists and everybody who got us to this podium today, thank you. Be safe, be well.